Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us about owning and operating childcare centers for the past 20 years and then making a change. Today, you'll be meeting Valerie Hawkins, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who became a health and wellness coach, got a master's in nutrition, and never looked back. Welcome to the show, Valerie. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Suzy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We'll be talking about your business, what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way to some degree and might be challenging for you. So let's get started with talking about how old you are, what your entrepreneurial journey was like, and what you do in the world. Take it away.
So I am 54.
Ooh, happy birthday. Congratulations. It's all good.
Excited. And I started my entrepreneurial journey after I had my first child. I needed flexibility in my life. I was working for a top 5 corporation as an electrical engineer, and I needed to do a lot of travel, and it just wasn't working for me.
Wow.
I was getting my MBA at the time, and I actually did a business plan on childcare centers as one of my projects. So
Get out.
I realized that was, hey, like there's something here. I kind of love kids. There was nothing in the area that I kind of liked where I wanted to put my child. So I was just like, let me just try to learn everything I can about childcare and figure out how to make it work. So I dove deep. Like I didn't have a background in childcare. I dove deep. I learned everything. And I found a center I kind of liked, worked with the owner. And, that's how it started. I kind of transitioned into childcare that way and kind of learned on the fly while I was doing it. So it was a little crazy, but exciting. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I love working with the kids, the parents, working with the teachers. I kind of loved it. And it was a lot of fun. And it gave me the flexibility I needed to have time with my kids. That was the big part.
That's brilliant. Like it's entrepreneurial, going from being an engineer. That's really interesting. Making sure that you studied properly and used it as part of your education and everything. That's amazing. And you created the flexibility and solved a problem for a lot of women, sounds like.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure parents were comfortable keeping their kids there. Like that was my issue. And I wanted to make sure they were comfortable. And so I ended up working with lots of the moms, talked with them a lot. A lot of them became good friends. So, as well as the teacher. So it was a really exciting time. And
wow,
it was great because I could have my kids with me when they were really little. And then I had the flexibility when they got older. So it was something that really worked for me, and it was exciting. And I do have a passion working with children.
All right. But then what happened? Because you had another idea.
Yeah, I had another idea. So if I think about it, I go back a little bit before that. So I think what started me on it, what I call is my hospital vacation. I ended up having a little thing on my face, and then it got infected. I ended up having to go to the hospital, and it was I don't have time. I didn't have time to go to the doctor, but when I went to the hospital, they're like, we have to admit you. And it was on IV there for about 4 days.
Oh my God.
I was stuck there 4 days. I had my iPad. It was actually a beautiful room. I took pictures. I told my sister, and I was like, this is really sad. This is the only time that I have time for myself. The only time. I sat there and I could think about things. I thought about my health. And that's when I started thinking about this is crazy. I found flexibility, but I'm 24/7, burnt out, exhausted,
Wow.
It still was a lot. So that's kind of where the spark started, where this is not okay for me to be kind of excited to be in a hospital. So,
hospital vacation is a great way to describe what happened. A forced reflection time. Thank God you were okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a major thing, enough to keep me there, right? But, definitely forced reflection. And it was kind of a really big thing. So I started diving deep into mental health and mindset and a little bit of nutrition. And then it was like 2016, I decided to make a big change and I cut out meat. People hate it when I talk about this. Some people don't talk to me about not eating. I gave up meat and I reduced the sugar intake like significantly, like to like almost nothing, no added sugar. And all of my health issues, I had migraines, fibromyalgia, IBS, all these issues that were really like causing me not to show up. And like within a few months, they were like almost all gone.
Wow.
So that was the big change. I was like, was it sugar? So was it the sugar? Was it the meat? Now I'm thinking it's because I got rid of those things. I had to replace them with healthier options. So the change made it, but like, sugar does like a lot to your body. So, and I was eating a lot of sugar. So,
and why were you suspicious of sugar? Like what happened for you that you really opened up to making a health change? A dietary change.
So I don't know. I was consuming a lot of sugar, like to the point where like I don't even want this. Like, why am I like, I would drink a lot of sodas, like really horrible diet. And, I think I was watching something and they looked at like a soda can and looked at like sugar cubes and like 55 grams of sugar is like this many sugar cubes. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm eating that much.
Wow.
And I just said, what would happen if I got rid of it? And I didn't even know a lot about nutrition back then. And it just made such an impact on my body that I said, oh, let me dive more into this. So that's when I started looking into health and wellness coaching. That's interesting. That wasn't enough for me. So I went back and got my master's in nutrition. And that was just been like completely fascinating to see the impact that food has on your body.
What's really standing out to me, like, we have only known each other for a few minutes. And what's really standing out to me is that fear does not prevent you from making big changes.
I think not, but like if you asked me to describe myself, I probably would say it does. So that's interesting. But when I think about it, I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like if I have enough passion about it, actually it does not.
Well, it's really striking me because one of the biggest things that surprised me about me was when I was stuck for 5 years in a job that I knew I needed to go, but fear prevented it.
Yeah.
Prevented the action. I didn't realize I was fearful. I thought I was confused. But in the end, once I, became trained as a coach and learned all about mindfulness and all this stuff, I can see what it was now very clearly. And so I really recognize when somebody doesn't have the same hang up that I had and you don't have it. And I love seeing the way you're thinking and making decisions and diving in. And I really appreciate it because I know when I was confused and stuck and fearful and all those things, I didn't do what you're doing. And I just thank you for sharing it for me because it's just so fun for me to see women who don't have that.
I think it probably took longer than the quick snapshot that I gave you. Right?
That's okay. It's still different than my experience. I doubt it was 5 years. I'm going to give you some praise. Okay. So you made the big changes, you studied and you dove in. And then at that point, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you know what was going to happen as a business?
I had no idea. My kids were all in sports. So I kind of thought that like, that's the avenue I wanted to take, like, sports nutrition. And I still am very interested in that and do a lot with like people individually that are in sports. But like, that wasn't kind of where I ended up. I ended up like more with the type of families that I was working with at the childcare center, like moms and like where situations more like myself that were kind of burnt out, exhausted, tired, all these aches and pains, like too tired to make a healthy meal, just mindset issues. That's kind of the direction I ended up going in. And I was kind of surprised because I thought I was kind of getting away from that, but I was like, oh, it seems to be very different than childcare, but I feel like as part of my experience as operating childcare centers, that's a lot of what I did was help families and help children. So it's very similar.
Yeah, now I can see it. Now I can absolutely see that. I'm a firm believer that you're always on the right path and the path makes sense, but it doesn't make sense when you're in it and confused, But yeah, it totally made sense because you were understanding a pain point at a deep level. Like you really understood what the problem was and what women needed as help. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And even now, I don't necessarily always just work on health and wellness and nutrition and mindset. It might be like, oh, could you tell me how to potty train my child? so,
So you're kind of like a childcare consultant with nutrition, serious nutrition expertise. Is that kind of what you do?
I do. That's how it has kind of ended up. It's kind of like I do like these almost like 911 calls on like how do I deal with biting for children or potty training or something else, while I'm also helping them with their own burnout and nutritional change, dietary changes and things like that.
Wow. So what would a ideal client of yours typically how would they typically describe their problem?
They're burnout, tired, in the midst of chaos, don't know what to do, kind of don't like the way they feel, either physically, mentally, would like to lose some weight, have tried everything. It's just not working. It's because their strategy is wrong that they're approaching. But it's kind of like, just a complete overwhelm, burnout. I don't know what to do.
And they actually use the word burnout?
Mostly exhausted. I'm tired.
Exhausted.
I am just tired. Tired.
Yeah. And then they probably say at that minute, did I tell you I was tired? Yeah, I'm tired.
I'm tired. I'm tired. Well, it's like, I'm tired. I don't know. They almost don't even know how to get help because they think the help is going to be more work and make them more tired.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how are you finding them? How are you connecting with these women and, really talking about how you can help them so that they register?
So most of the people that I've worked with, I've kind of through childcare centers is kind of like how I got a lot of them.
Look at this. This is so beautiful.
So it's kind of like, cause like they are, they're working moms that have their kids in childcare centers that are kind of like running from here to there. They're picking their kids up late. They're dropping them off. The kids they're dealing with all of this and they could see it. And they might, in the midst of it, they would talk about, oh, I'm so tired. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, when am I ever going to get a break? And, then they would talk about like, they don't like their clothes, it would kind of evolve that way. And that's how I started talking with these type of families. And then there's a lot of word of mouth, that type of thing in the area.
Wow. That childcare center thing, it really, it matches. It's perfect. It's perfect. You really do understand these women. That's for sure. So, that on this podcast, I love to talk about how midlife challenges for you personally are affecting the way you want to roll out your business and run your business. So what are some of the things that have come up for you? I know one thing you talked about in your notes was that it was a big challenge to get over just the mindset about aging, that you might be too old for this sort, like another change, another pivot. Yeah,
that did scare me. Like it was actually a fear. It's kind of like, I want to go back. I went back to school, got my master's in nutrition. And was I too old? Would I be able to do the work? Like, I really was afraid, but it was the best thing I did. Like, actually the best, because I think it helped get my mind going again. You know what I mean? I can do all this. I can do the research. I can do all of the work. So it was really good for me to know I could and work with, in the program, there's like younger women and men, and there are also some older ones too. So it was good to see the balance. So, but I was really afraid that like, am I too old?
Wow. And was this in person or was it Zoom?
It was, hybrid, mostly online.
Wow. That's different too. Like going back to school in a way that's completely different. That I know my kids ended up in doing a lot of school online, and it really changed the experience. I think it would be less of a problem for older people. I think because I don't know. I just
it was better. I don't know if I would have done it if I had to go in.
Right.
I don't know, because I think that would have been really hard.
Yeah. I can totally see that. So how did you handle this idea of what other people would think, especially people that knew you from engineering and business?
That was really hard. Like, I didn't even tell anybody right away. Like, I didn't even tell people I knew. Like, I did this health coaching thing that I was going to get a master's in. Like, I didn't even tell anyone. I think I told my sister and my mom, and they were kind of like, oh, that's cool. Are you crazy? I didn't tell anyone at first because of that fear. And then I actually did a different type of coaching program certification for myself and kind of worked on showing up authentically, accepting myself, which was like the big thing. So when I worked on acceptance of myself, like everything changed. So that was like the big part. Cause I didn't tell anyone. I mean, I'm not big on social media. Like that's another hard thing for me. Like I just don't do social media. So I started, that was like, oh, once I do it, everyone's going to know.
That was similar for me too. Like I remember I was okay talking about it on Facebook, but I wasn't okay talking about it on LinkedIn for a while.
Okay. Yeah.
But I had also some thoughts of judgment and
absolutely. Yeah.
It's so funny because, if you look up all the memes and jokes about older women caring less about what people think as they age, I'm like, when's this going to kick in? Because for me, it didn't kick in right at 50. I had to get a little further in.
Like when they care less, like,
I still care. Uh-oh.
I care. Maybe about different things, it wasn't necessarily like the way I necessarily looked. It was more like other things than appearance, I think.
Yeah. For me, it was more credibility of doing this new kind of education and different kinds of education from what I was originally attracted to and had a strong identity for me, it was a master's in psychology. So that was like a real, I was very strongly identified with that. And it was very important to me that I had competence, that happened for you too.
Yeah. I mean, I had a degree in engineering, right? And an MBA, and then you go to nutrition. But it's so hard. Like I'm surprised the amount of science in it is incredible.
Oh my God, it's so hard. I know. I worked in public health for a long time, for a couple of decades, and the nutritionists, they know a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's way different. But it was like, this is perfect. Like I was so excited when I saw all the science in it. But yeah. But
That's
most
great.
people don't look at it that way. But.
No, and I guess was that what fed into this imposter syndrome kind of feeling that you also experienced that you mentioned in the notes?
I think so, because do you have to have 20 years experience, 30 years experience in nutrition to give people good advice? But once I got into it and I learned so much information, it's like, oh yeah, I have a lot of information. I have a lot of knowledge to be able to. But I think it took a while to get that confidence that I had enough experience and knowledge and actually could make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's a very real part of being an entrepreneur in midlife. So you mentioned one other thing I wanted to touch on. I was very glad you mentioned it. And it was that a part of you is worried for your kids as they are in college and graduating. And while you're worried about them also finding themselves and doing all the things, but there's also this little bit of excitement about freedom that you can do more things as they become more independent. You can also do more things. So it's kind of like, do you remember Push Me, Pull You from, what was that? Oh my goodness, Dr. Dolittle.
Oh, Dr. Dolittle.
Remember Dr. Dolittle? Sometimes when I work on a reference, I wish it didn't take me that long to think of it. But the push me, pull you, it's like, oh, I'm a little worried. They're growing up and oh, I'm a little excited because it means a little more freedom for me. So when you think about that freedom, what comes up for you? What are you excited about?
It's a freedom to do like lots of things. It's kind of like, oh, I can go places, I can travel places, I can still work and see lots of things. For me, it's a lot of travel. Like I could still work and see clients and stuff like that, like remotely. So that's exciting to be able to experience the world like differently. So that's also just experience different things that I couldn't do before and do things in different ways that I couldn't do before because there's that freedom.
Yeah. And when it comes to worrying about your young adults, what's that like for you? Have you noticed what it is you're actually worried about?
It's worried that they're going, for me, it's like worried that they're going to be happy, that they're going to make good choices, but mostly worried that they're going to be happy and do something that they really enjoy. I think I enjoyed everything I've done, engineering, childcare, nutrition. I've enjoyed each one of those things differently. I didn't change because I didn't like it. It was just, it just kind of evolved, and my life evolved and I just modified. So I just hope that they are able to find that as well. make sure that they're happy and enjoy what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well said. And also, I know that sometimes it can be challenging to schedule things because all of the emergencies that are popping up all over the place with midlife. What's that like for you?
Challenging. Really challenging. I keep like buffer in my schedule, like a lot of buffer in my schedule to make sure, because I find that if I don't, like, I feel like it gets a little bit out of control as thing comes up. So I try to keep a little bit of buffer in my schedule. I put big things in first.
I was just going to say, how do you actually do it? What does your schedule look like that feels like a buffer zone for you?
So I put the things in first that I have to do. Like if I have a scheduled meeting or something, I put that in. And then I make sure the very next thing I put in are things that I enjoy, that I want to do. Like if I want to take my dog out, that's on the schedule. If I want to go somewhere, so I put the fun stuff in next. And then I put all the other stuff in. And I feel like as long as the first two things are in there, everything else is buffered. Like I don't have to get it done. I usually do get it done, but if something comes up, I feel like the big things are in there. I put in time for myself and the rest of the stuff will get done, but that's my buffer.
I got it. That's great. And do you have any resistance to being really good about sticking to that idea of buffer? Or are you really open? No problem. This is how we're rolling now.
Well, this is how we're rolling now, but there's lots of resistance because I'm kind of a type A, very organized kind of person. Like this is on the schedule, check. And when things don't get checked, like I used to have a lot of problems with it. But I think just having that, and it's like I like to get the check marks, but like if something happens and I don't check them off, it's still okay. I'm okay with that now.
Because that's great. Yeah.
Buffer.
Another thing I wanted to follow up with you on is this mindset for goal setting. So tell me how that's working for you.
Just coming up with just general mindset or just how I go about it?
Well, you said that you really had to work on changing your mindset about goal setting. So are you better at it now? Do you have more strategies to help yourself with it? How's that going for you?
Yeah, I think I changed my mindset completely about goal setting was, and it sounds so obvious now. Like I just had to get clarity on like what it was I wanted, right? Like,
yes, that's it.
Yes. Like, what do you really want? So that was the first thing. It's kind of like it seems so obvious, but I think it's not for a lot of
Valerie, people. You're hilarious. That's my whole business.
Well, I do a lot of that too now. So.
I know, like as coaches, we really want to help people become happier and more fulfilled. How do you do that? You live in alignment, you plan a business in alignment that helps you focus on what you really care about, right? And so when we're just oblivious and rolling along in life and responding and reacting to things rather than creating and deciding on purpose how things are going to go, that's when things go awry.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I did. Like clarity. And then I did what I call, like most people call it, values elicitation from that. And I just like, how did my values align with those goals? And then where they weren't in alignment, I worked on that. And then that's how I got my goals, better goals that worked for my personal values versus goals that were someone else's goals or someone else thought I should do. So that was kind of like changing my whole mindset.
Yeah, huge.
Actually creating goals that I wanted and knowing where I wanted to go, not where I didn't want to go. Yeah. That was part of it too. Like I knew where I didn't want to go, but where did I want to go?
Exactly. And so many of us focus on we don't want instead of what we do want. And it's just such a leap for us to allow ourselves to dream that way, to think if I really could create what I wanted, what would it be? We don't ask ourselves that much, we're just so busy doing all the other things and the shoulds and the thises and the that's. Yeah, that is really, really great. And what would you say is one of the most important goals you have for your business and your direction?
The goal for my business? So yeah. The goal for my business was to impact like hundreds of thousands of women, like just to have that impact. That was the goal, to have an impact that would help change their life.
That's so great. I mean, you can sleep well with that goal, It's like, I'm doing good things in the world. Yeah, it's so important. I love helping women. I just feel like as women, I'm just like the biggest cheerleader. Women don't recognize how amazing they are and how much they're doing, not just in their own life, but running a business and dealing with these midlife issues of aging parents and all this unpredictability and caring so much and being the go-to person and priding yourself on being able to offer a lot of help. It can be really challenging to stay the course. Like for you to be so amazing about your calendar and sticking with that buffer zone stuff. That's why I'm asking, like, how do you really do it? Do you have an urge to let other things encroach? Because it's so easy for us to have a great idea and then other things can come in. And if we're not like so clear on our boundaries and our priorities, before you know it, there's other things in those time slots. And the poor dog didn't go out.
Yeah, the dog. Yeah. I schedule that time in first. I make sure I schedule that time. But like the thought thing, like I free write 20 minutes every day. Just to let my mind go every day to help get all the juices flowing and
and get all the crap out so you can like look at it and think about it. Yeah, that is so good. So what do you think is one of the really fun things about being this age and stage in life?
Fun things. There's so many fun things. Like I just kind of like look at the world differently. I don't know if it's the age or stage or like because I changed the way I look at things, but just being able to experience things with like happiness and joy and like even little things. Like I feel like I might start to like, get like really tight on something. And I'm like, this is so silly. Like just have a little more joy, like, add some humor to it, being able to like not take things so seriously. I think is big, but still taking things seriously, but like adding a little bit more joy and a little bit more humor into it is just like, like if I had done that when I was 20, I would have had so much more fun.
Oh my God. So true. So true. Well, another thing you mentioned here are the hot flashes, and hot flashes is something a lot of women have talked about on this podcast, hot flashes and energy. And it's hard to have a ton of control over the hot flashes. It can really affect you. So when you're trying to talk to people and run your business, what's it like to like have that go on?
Well, I had one right before I started to talk to you.
Oh, really?
I have one in a minute. I at first it drove me crazy, but right now, like I don't do anything like take any estrogen or anything. So I still get some hot flashes. And I just tell people like, sorry, I'm having a flash.
Exactly.
I don't really like, it is what it is. Like a room of men, I don't really care. It's like, sorry, I'm like I need a moment.
Yeah, that's so good. Tell me more about nutrigenomics. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, nutrigenomics. Yeah, you can say nutrigenomics. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you mentioned that you're focusing on it a bit more now. What's that like? What is it? How's it going to be part of your business?
So nutrigenomics is basically like it's a one-time test someone would take to look at your DNA, and it kind of like it's not going to find any like genetic problems, but like everyone has like they're called SNPs, these little tiny changes in them, and it's kind of once you find out what they are, you find out like how to nutritionally address this person's problem. They might have a problem with an enzyme for histamine. So I might have a lot of like allergy kind of reactions. And then you find out, they have a histamine intolerance problem. They just don't have a problem with that gene in them. So like there's all these little ones like that you can just make some dietary changes and like all of these problems that they might have been having kind of go away. But you have to know what they are in order to be able to address them. So this test like can change, that might tell someone that, they don't metabolize fat very well, or they don't metabolize carbs very well. So then that would indicate like what type of diet it's like they should go on. It's like, well, this diet doesn't work for you because you have this variation. So you need to know like what these variations are to help you with, it might be diet or inflammation or any kind of problems you might be having.
I'm fascinated by that. I've recently had a dairy sensitivity 2 years ago. Never had a dairy sensitivity in my life. I love cheese. Bring it on. No problems. I would always be going out with friends for, dinner or lunch, and they'd have all these issues to talk to the waiter about. I never had anything. And now I have. Now I have things. And I wonder, is that kind of a test? Would that have some insight into this dairy issue that's popped up for me?
It might. if it's something that just came up for you, it may or not be. Like, it could be genetics. It could be just your gut microbiota has changed. So now you just don't have the enzymes, and your amount of enzymes change as you get older. So you might need supplement enzymes. So it could be, but it's like one of many things you would look at in a person to see how to address it. But it's like a big one, because like some of the other testing you could do, like you would never see it. So
it's fascinating.
A better picture. It's very fascinating.
It's fascinating. And I would imagine not everybody is offering that too. It's probably going to be very good for your business. Is that so? Is it easy to get?
I don't know. Like, some people don't offer it. I don't know why. You have to like do a lot more studying for it. You have to kind of learn about the test from a nutritional standpoint. You have to know like which tests to take to stay within scope of practice.
Right.
Only things that are nutritionally. So I think maybe that's why it gets a little confusing. So
fascinating. It's really interesting. Like right now, I happen to be doing some ancestry.com type of stuff with looking into the history of DNA for relationships. And it's just amazing what technology can do. It's just
and some of them you just import over that same data from that test into this other thing, and that's how they use it. You don't even have to take another test if you've already done one.
Wow, it's fascinating.
Import it over to different software.
So cool. Okay, so how can people best get in touch with you?
My website is hawkinshealthandwellness.com.
Amazing.
That's the best way. So there's links to book a call, to email me. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me right now.
It sounds like it. That's great. Valerie, thank you so much for sharing all of this. And really, your entrepreneurial journey is so interesting. Engineering, childcare, and then how that just led beautifully into what you're doing now, and how it can help you now with your relationships and your understanding of the pain and the pain points and everything that women like with families are experiencing in those situations and more. It's so, so good. I love it. Your story's awesome. Thank you so much for popping on the show today.
Great. Thank you. It was fun.
All right. That is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with this show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.